Mayte Garcia recently released a book. A lot of people have some thoughts on it. Do you want to know mine? Hey everybody, welcome back to Princess Friend. I'm your host, Princess Friend, and today I have the review for Mayte Garcia's book called The Most Beautiful. And review is going to be a little bit of a different thing. You know, I don't do a lot of book reviews here. This is a visual medium and it's hard to do book reviews. I'm not going to have like page excerpts here or anything like that, so it's more like a discussion, but I am going to hit some major notes here on the book, what it covers, and my thoughts on those things. But I do want to say, I'm going to spoil maybe a couple of things, but not a ton of things. So I think it is definitely worth it for you to go buy it. This is definitely not going to be a chapter by chapter breakdown or anything like that. And obviously, if you're into this video and any videos that Princess Friend puts out, don't forget to hit like, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notifications button, tweet it, share it on Facebook, Instagram it, do whatever. A lot of options today to show if you are pleased with something. So getting into a general overview of the book, it is actually really, really good. So I'll start there first off. The review is blown. It's a good book. The prologue actually starts us off with Mayte's first trip to Paisley Park after Prince's death. And it is quite touching and was one of the first times that I learned that Prince didn't allow photography and all that stuff on the premises. That was new information for me at the time when I picked up the book. But reading the book, I think the biggest thing that you learn is that this is a book about Mayte. It is not actually a book about Prince, as you would think. It's not him at the forefront or anything like that. It's a book about Mayte. And the very first, I would say third possibly, of the book, the first few chapters, we see that Prince was kind of always a part of Mayte's life, even before they met, but there isn't any kind of like weird obsession and everything has to relate back to Prince. On the contrary, we're introduced to her mom and dad, we're introduced to how the family dynamics work, Jan, her sister. I especially love the stories about how she would go visit her grandmother in Puerto Rico and how her first exposure to Prince was on VHS tapes that her mom would record MTV and then mail them to Puerto Rico so that they could watch them because they didn't have cable. Fun stuff like that that really gets you to kind of know the person that is writing the book. There were a lot of really good establishing chapters that really let you kind of get into the mindset of Mayte before you get into the meat of it, which everybody bought it for, which was,
well, what happened when she met Prince?
When they do eventually meet, it's kind of told in a way as almost like it was kismet or a twist of fate or serendipity, but it also seems like it had a lot to do with her mom and her persistence that Mayte was a star and that she could be on stage doing everything that those other people were doing, and they were gonna say, hey, maybe Prince can help with that. And everybody's heard the story about how the mom orchestrated the video getting back there, and then they met, and it was pretty cool. And when they actually were in the relationship together, I thought that the book really kind of covered that well. It kind of gave them a really cool work-love relationship kind of back and forth where they were romantically involved, yes, but they respected each other as performers and artists. You know, Prince with his music, Mayte with her dance, and she was another member of the band. It wasn't like, you're special because I love you. It was, everybody is expected to be at this level, and if you're not, sorry, but good thing she was. At the end of the book, it also kind of goes into what happened after she was no longer in Prince's camp, and that stuff was pretty interesting as well to kind of see where we kind of come full circle back to today. So that's the general overview of what to expect in the book. But I do want to hit a few key points in the book that simultaneously clear up some things, but also present new things that we didn't know before the book. And speaking of their son, Amir, I'm not actually going to go in depth here about that topic. I think that it was a heart-wrenching tale in the book. It was, I think, a story that only she could tell. I had to put it down about halfway through reading that chapter because I had to kind of collect myself because it was so vivid and it was so sad what had happened with them and their son and how all of that stuff went through. So I definitely, I'm not going to rehash it all. You need to read the book in order to learn that story. I'm not going to go through it all. But there was one thing about that I wanted to address. And it was a claim that had been running around for a while that Prince refused medical intervention. And I just want to say for the record, it's just untrue. And this book is actually very much proof of it. At countless points in the book, Mayte's talking about their latest trip to the doctor, their stay in the hospital, the tests run that the doctors did, and like all of these things. They obviously weren't refusing medical intervention. What they did refuse was a procedure called an amniocentesis. It's where they puncture the amniotic sac so that they can get some of the fluid out of there, and then they can test and see what's going on with the child genetically on the DNA basis. And the thing about that is that the procedure itself can cause a miscarriage. So there are thousands and thousands of couples who refuse that procedure, and refusing that procedure doesn't mean that you caused something to happen to your kid. It's not reckless, it's not irresponsible, it's not wrong. It just means that you're willing to accept your child as it is born. A lot of the time people use that test to see if they want to see that pregnancy through or eliminate it. But if that's not even an option in your book, then the test is meaningless anyway. I will also say that this book makes us privy to information about the end of Prince and Mayte's relationship, their divorce/annulment, which was information that I never really necessarily needed to know. But she was telling her story here, so she wanted people to know kind of what it was like from her side of that. And I would say that it doesn't necessarily put Prince in the best light or good light. It is actually kind of negative towards Prince in that part. And again, even though she's telling it from her point of view, which you can tell is with so much love, you can tell that there's also a lot of pain in it. And I've said it on this channel before. There are three sides to every story. There's this side, and then there's the truth somewhere in the middle. So obviously you have to take this information from Mayte and know that the other side isn't being spoken about. You're not learning the whole thing. You're learning her perspective of the situation. For instance, I'm actually on my second marriage now, and if you ask my first wife about me, I am probably the devil incarnate. But of course, I have my own side of all of those situations. That's just kind of how it is. That's how relationships work. And that's how the truth works. So you do have to kind of know that going into this book. And I heard a lot of people say that Mayte shouldn't even be speaking at all because Prince didn't want the story out there. But I'd argue that this is just as much Mayte's story to tell as it was Prince's. It's her life. She's not just a piece of Prince's life. She has her own life. She is doing her own things, her own mind. The death of her son was also the death of Prince's son, but it was her son too. These are all stories that she probably was ready to finally share. And it's interesting because I feel like there's some sort of weird double standard because when Tina Turner's book came out and it spoke ill of Ike Turner and their relationship and what was going on and all of that, she was applauded. So I'm not understanding why there seems to be this weird double standard for Mayte. Because what I've noticed is that there are a lot of people, and that is mostly Prince's female fans, who have an intense hatred for Mayte. And I was speaking with a friend of mine recently, and I'm going to leave his name out of this, and I don't want to make anybody else guilty of this, but he came up with a theory as to why, and it's because all of these women all around the world, they all wanted to be Mrs. Prince. So the woman who got to be Mrs. Prince becomes the object of their vitriol, becomes this terrible person who's throwing a conspiracy to trick Prince and all of these things. But who knows what the real truth is? I certainly don't, but I think that's a funny theory. The book does go a little bit into Larry Graham and him kind of drawing Prince into the Jehovah's Witness religion. I'm not going to really talk about that too much. That might come up in maybe a different video, but she does talk a lot about that, and it came as a result of the loss of their son and all of these things, and that was also a big, wedge that was driven between the two of them in their relationship. There were also rumors about Prince banishing Mayte from Paisley Park, and there's a ton of people who are all up in arms because, she should never be allowed back in the premises because Prince would never have wanted it. Well, the way that I think of it is that was his ex-wife. So he probably banished her by saying, why would I want to see my ex-wife? I divorced her. Why do I want to see her? Especially when he got with his second wife, Manuela. If I have a new wife, why would I want to see the old wife? That doesn't make any sense. Interestingly enough, and this is a point, is that on Hollywood X's, the show that Mayte eventually went to be on, there was an episode where Manuela was on there as well, and they're apparently friends, or they were during the recording of that. So I found that kind of interesting. I also do want to say that I did watch the show Hollywood X's so that I could maybe get a sense of it for this review, and I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan. I'm not a big fan of reality TV in general, but this premise was pretty thin. But at the same time, I think a lot of it was also due to the fact that I went into it to watch what was going on with Mayte, but she got such little screen time. There were so many X's that they had to spread the time between them, and it just made it less enjoyable because the person I was there to watch wasn't on the screen. But the other big thing is that she does tell the story of how she ended up adopting Gia, which is her daughter, the amazingly cute little girl. She does go a little bit into also her dog adoption work. So I'm going to put a link to her Twitter in the description because she does a lot of work with rescue dogs. So if you're in the market for a dog, maybe you go get one for Mayte. I've definitely rambled on a bit here, and there are so many different things to talk about in this book, but I'm going to stop it there and I'm going to move on to final thoughts. So my final thoughts on this book is that it is a definite must-read, especially if you liked anything that Prince did in the 90s. This isn't a book from a random person who knew Prince or someone who tangentially worked with Prince or somebody from his childhood. This was his wife of many years. This was the mother of his son. This was someone who he worked with professionally, romantically, someone who he respected and respected him back. For a lot of people, Mayte is the story. Because Prince surrounded himself with creative people who would feed his imagination, and together, he and other people would push each other up to greater heights. And Prince and Mayte did this. I would argue that Prince's career in the 90s was one of his best eras, and it's not in spite of Mayte's involvement, but because of it. The most beautiful, really well done book. You can tell that it was written from a place of love, even though if you look between the lines, you can see that the stories do kind of cast Prince in a negative light. I don't feel that any of that was intentional on Mayte's part. That said, I think the book sheds a lot of light on the things going on behind the veil from her point of view, and I think it's a story that only Mayte could tell. I really, really dug the book. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. So have you read the book? I want to know your thoughts on this book in the comments. If you haven't read the book, did this review make you want to go and buy it? Let's discuss that as well. Otherwise, if you like videos like this, don't forget to check us out on social media, Twitter, Instagram. If you want to support the channel directly, you can go to patreon.com/princessfriend. Every dollar helps. And in the meantime, may you live to see the dawn. Love you. See you in the next video.